Afternoon, everyone. I'm back again. So, another exciting session. And today, as promised, I'm going to talk to you about values and boundaries. Something very, very important if we are going to preserve what's important to us, and our sense of self, what's important to us in our relationships, in our lives. It's really important that we're so clear on what our values are, what our boundaries are around other people, and that we are able to let them know what they are. But before I go into that, I'm just going to tell you about a really exciting RTT, rapid transformational session that I'm doing after this one. So many of you, obviously, at the moment, we're doing a huge amount of work on anxiety. And the person I'm doing the session with after this actually rang me a couple of days ago to say that she has so much trauma that she's physically shaking. So she's shaking to the degree that she said she can't get her work done because she can't actually, if you imagine she's shaking, she said she can't actually hold a pen. And she's like this all the time. Now, she's done 18 months of therapy, and this is how she is. So she's no different now to when she started 18 months ago. And if anything, it's got worse, because obviously you get the compounding effect then, where when you're not getting better, you get worried and it makes it worse. So very exciting for me. After this, I'm going to go and do that session with her. And my challenge is, what I've actually promised her is that in this session tonight, I will stop her shaking. So that's, I'm really excited about that, because I know that I can do it. And one of the things I really hope is that she will let me share some of that session for you, or maybe once I've done this and I've stopped her shaking in this one session, I'm really hoping that she will maybe share something about that with you as well, because obviously when people have been in therapy for 18 months and they are still shaking like a leaf from trauma, they find it very hard to get their heads around the fact that I can work with them in one session, and they're going to stop this shaking, and they are going to feel completely different and calm and relaxed and in control afterwards. So that's what I'm doing after this. And I hope to be able to share some more about that with you, let you know how that goes, what I do, what works, why it works. Very, very exciting to be able to help someone who has been this way for such a long time, and it's having such a devastating effect on her life. So let's get back to what we're really supposed to be talking about. I get excited about the anxiety stuff at the moment because I know the big difference I can make to people. But values and boundaries. And the reason, again, this with the clients I've been working with lately, because obviously it's all trauma and abuse. So this comes up a lot. Where people who have been abused, especially when they were abused as children and over a sustained period of time, they come to me because they can't understand some of the patterns that they have in their relationships. And the patterns tend to be that they don't see it this way. They don't have the words to express this, but the way I help them piece it together is that they are really struggling to establish their own values and to put their boundaries in place, and then to make sure that people don't violate them, don't kind of bring them down, say that they're rubbish, think that they're unimportant. And the reason this happens is because as a child who's being abused, and this happens a lot, I find this when I'm dealing with people who have had a narcissistic parent. So narcissistic parents are, for a child, they are, I mean, as an adult, we find it impossible to deal with narcissists. The difference is that hopefully as adults, we can recognize their behavior and move on. You know, some of us don't, we get caught up in relationships with them, but once we know, so we can do that. We've got the power, the control to remove ourselves and say, my God, that person's toxic. I don't want them in my life. As a child whose need is for love, support, nurture, aside from their basic needs of food, water, shelter, a child needs those things. And obviously the people that mostly give those are the parents. So when the parent is narcissistic or abusive, what the child learns is that what they have to do, they have to do whatever the abuser wants just to stay alive. This is all about survival. This is how your mind works. To survive, to be able to stay in this house, I have to do what is required of me. And it sets up this pattern. And remember, we're back to the blueprint. So the pattern, the blueprint, it sets up this thought process that to survive, to be loved, to be cared for in any kind of way at all, I must do what someone else wants. Because if I don't, I'm going to die. I'm going to be thrown out. I'm going to be rejected. Remember, we come back to some very complex thought patterns here around connection and rejection. So we've got all of that at play as well, which makes it very, very difficult for anyone in that abuse situation to be able to put their own boundaries and values in place. Because around the age of 6, children start to establish what is important for themselves, what's right, what's wrong, what do they like in people, what don't they like. And when they are in an abusive situation, they don't get the opportunity to do that. They can't do that. They have no voice. And they don't have anyone to talk to. They don't have anyone to express that, this behavior is unacceptable to them, that they don't like this trait in people. But what they learn, there's a couple of things they learn. Number one, they learn that they are unimportant. They are undeserving. They are irrelevant. They learn that they are bad. So what they take from that is that they don't deserve anything good. And the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. So this pattern goes through, and you can end up in a relationship then where you are not able, for all of these reasons. Number one, you don't think you deserve it. And number two, you are just not able to express. You are so scared of upsetting the person, of them not giving you what you need. If you try and even express what you need, you are all about meeting their needs, doing what they want. So you become a giver, out and out giver. You don't want to take anything in case you offend someone, in case you do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, and that person might leave you. And here's the thing you learn as a child. Children think, if I do everything I can to please my abuser, maybe they will see that I'm good and not bad, and they will leave me alone. Maybe if I do enough. And children of narcissistic parents as well. Now they know that they are really, really hurting, and that they have these needs that aren't being met. So children of narcissistic parents will also, all of their boundaries are being violated all the time. And again, they don't voice anything, because what they think is, if I do everything I can to please and appease this person, number one, maybe they will stop this awful behavior. Maybe they will stop this criticism, this bringing me down, this demeaning me. Maybe this will stop. And that's what they're trying to do. Maybe this person will love me if I am enough of what they need. And, I'm working through with people sometimes, and they're talking about how as really, really young children, they would come in from school, and to avoid the harsh criticism of a parent who was working, they would clean the whole house, or do loads of ironing or stuff like that, just longing. And they can feel themselves, they can feel that they were just longing for some love, some praise. And of course, it never happened. All they got was criticism for not doing things right, for not doing enough, for doing it wrong, for doing, the wrong thing at the wrong time, in the wrong way. Just this relentless. So it is impossible to put values and boundaries in place. And as I say, this then leads to, when you're an adult, that you find it hard to do this, because you move forward in this people-pleasing and giving mode. And unfortunately, what happens then in your relationships, you tend to, obviously there will be exceptions. there will be exceptions, but the people you tend to attract then are the people who are looking to take advantage of this, the people who are looking to control, who just want someone who is going to give, so they can get exactly what they want, when they want, with no care or concern for your feelings. So if we summarize this, it ends up you're in a relationship as an adult without your values and boundaries, or if you've got them and you try to voice them and the other person doesn't agree, you will immediately back down. That happens too. You don't feel that you have enough value, enough importance to be able to stand firm, to be able to press your point and to say what's important to you. So you end up in this controlling, this manipulative situation. And of course, what happens is exactly what happened in your childhood. You're now in a situation as an adult where someone else is behaving like your mother did, or your father, or whoever it was, demeaning you, putting you down, making you think your opinions aren't important, you have no value, you have no worth, and all it is doing is confirming the pattern that has already been put into place. So that explains why it's very difficult sometimes to put values and boundaries in place, but we need to. You absolutely need to, for the reasons that I've just said. It's very important that, number one, you know what your values are. So when I work with people, I get them to write these down. What are your values? As in, who are you? What's important to you? Okay, so what's important, and then what's important to you and other people. And these are all going to be very close, don't forget. They're going to be joined, they're going to be linked, there's going to be patterns here. And then when you're thinking about this from a relationship point of view, because this is where it really shows up the most, when you can't establish your values, when you can't keep your boundaries in place, when people are constantly crossing them, it affects your relationships, all of your relationships. That's family, friends, work colleagues. It's when you can stand in who you are, what you stand for, and you are just full of confidence that you don't mind if other people reject your values and boundaries, but you are standing firm in them. That's where you want to get to. So what this means is, so you look at your values and boundaries for you, and then so who am I? Okay, and then you look at, so what are all my values and boundaries? And then what do I want in another person? And what does that person want in me? And you get really clear about this, and you establish this. And in your relationships, you express this. Thank you, someone likes this. You express this. You are very, very clear about this. So that when you are in a relationship, when you start a relationship or a job, or you meet new people, it is very clear who you are and what people can and cannot do with and to you. And this is what you're trying to get to. So let's say if you express that one of your values is honesty, you meet someone, honesty is really important to me. And then you discover that even if the other person says honesty is important to you, you have to remember to be authentic. Words and actions have to match. Okay, so are they saying one thing and doing another? Well, then what they said isn't really their value. They just said that to keep you happy. You don't want people to keep you happy. You want people who are what you need. And it's okay to reject people who are not what you need. You will always be right for the right people, and they will always be right for you. You don't need to establish intimate relationships and deep friendships with people that don't meet your needs and don't share your values. What's the point? You know, that you're just not going to have this common ground. Obviously, you don't have to share everything, but everything about that person does have to be acceptable to you. So, you know, if you're someone who is sober, doesn't drink at all, you're unlikely to be best friends with an alcoholic, because where would be your common ground? You might have empathy for them, you might have sympathy, you might have compassion, but you're not going to have an intimate relationship, because where does that go? Your values are completely different. Okay. So it's okay to express your values. Now, you can never ask someone else to change to be what you need to be. You need to meet people who are what you need them to be, as they are. Now, what you can do, and when you, this is what happens, you see, when you don't stand firm in your values and boundaries, is when you end up with the wrong people in your life, because you haven't clearly defined what your boundaries are and what you need. You haven't come across as that. It's like, if you, let's say you don't like people who swear a lot, and suddenly you find yourself out in a group and someone is swearing a lot, and you find it really offensive, and you don't really want to spend time with that person, but every time they invite you out, you do something with them. So they think you're great friends, but this is actually really annoying and irritating, and this is hurting you. This isn't what you want. Okay, and this is what I'm saying about being firm in your values and boundaries and what you want and need. And then that you won't give people the wrong impression, and you will attract the right kind of people. So when I was saying, you can't ask someone to change. Like, people have to change for themselves. All right. No one can change because someone else asks them to. You can only change because you want to. But what you can do, you can express maybe something about the person that you don't like. You can express that it doesn't meet your needs. It's not in line with your values. And yeah, you have a boundary around this. And then it's up to the other person. All right. Because so they can then make a decision and say, okay, I can see what you're saying, and I would like to be that person. I would like to change in the way that you've just said. And that's a very, very different place to come from. This is someone taking on board what you're saying and deciding for themselves. So whether you are in their life or not, they want to change in this way for themselves and for the sake of any other and future relationships, which is very different to you saying, I need you to change. I need you to do this. You can't do that. But what you can do, if you express something that's important to you and that person says, well, sorry, this is how I am, then they're making a decision too. Okay, they're saying, no, I can't, sorry, that's not my values and boundaries. And then that is up to you. You have to stand firm or not. You have to make a decision and say, can I live with this? Or is this a deal breaker for me? But then because you've broken everything down and said, this is what I want, this is why I want it, this is what I need, this is what I need in a person, and say, well, this person actually doesn't give me that. And then if you make a decision to stay with them anyway, or to have a deep friendship or whatever relationship this is, that's up to you. But you have made it knowing that they have this trait that you don't like, and that's absolutely fine. So do you see how when we're honest and authentic and we have these clear barriers and boundaries and values, it's much easier for everyone, because we can all see who needs what, where do we fit in, you know? It's much easier. And just let me illustrate this. I have two, well, I have quite a lot of values and boundaries, but I have two that are absolute deal breakers for me. And they are very, very clear. And they come from respecting other people, which you would expect from the work that I do. I kind of respect, I have compassion, empathy, just a gentleness and a love for everyone, really. So I have two really strong mantras, almost two values. And one of them is, I define it as, this is a good way actually, rather than just taking words as well, kind of sum up how you would expect these to play out in your life. So I talk about respecting other people, and the way these are for me is I like to think, I try to leave everyone that I meet or have contact with a feeling of increase, which means that I'm giving something to them. I'm inputting something positive into their lives. That's what I try to do. And the other one around that is to try to never be disappointed in the way that I treat people. Okay, those are deal breakers for me. I absolutely have to have that in the people that I am close with. So the way that shows up, I could not be in a relationship with someone who didn't respect other people, who was demeaning, putting other people down, talking to them with contempt. That when I hear that about myself, or even to other people, because to me it says something about the person underneath. Who is this person that wants to treat people in this way, that wants to put people down, wants to demean people? And honestly, I just feel myself, I just shrivel and recoil from that. So that is one of my really, really strong values that I have in place. And I just told you that to kind of illustrate how this can play out. And I am absolutely 100% focused on those. And what it means for me, it means, number one, that no one treats me with disrespect or talks to me with contempt. And even if someone talks to me with impatience and irritation, I will kind of say to them, please don't speak to me like that. Please don't. And like they have to stop. Otherwise they're just, I just can't be in that conversation. So if you want to speak to me, you speak to me in a proper way. There are ways of expressing things that don't involve contempt and impatience and irritation, but they can't do it to other people either. Now that's fine. If someone knows that that's my values and they're like, that's ridiculous, that's over the top, how can you possibly do that? That's fine. They can make that decision. But I'm at the point where those values are so important to me that if someone decides, oh, well, I can't do that, that's fine. But we're not going to be great friends, and I'm not going to have any kind of a strong relationship with you. See, I'm not bothered. I'm not dictating to them how they have to be. I'm just saying how I need people to be around me, what I need in people, and they can accept that or reject that. And if they reject me, that's fine, because you know what? I know that the values and boundaries that I put in place are right for the right people, and I don't worry about the people that I'm not right for. Believe me, there are people who love the stuff I do on Facebook. There are people who hate it. I've got haters out there. Absolutely fine. I get odd comments. I get some obscene suggestions from men sometimes. I've got people who tell me to shut up and F off and everything, and that's fine. I don't care. I'm not their person. Absolutely. They're not right. I'm not right for them. They're not right for me. And it really doesn't matter. And when you can just have that attitude that you will be firm in your values and your boundaries, that what's important to you is important, and don't ever let anyone tell you, like these really strong values that I have, I could have people say to me, that's ridiculous, you can't expect that of anyone. Okay, that's fine. You can say it's ridiculous, but it's mine. It's not yours. I'm not going to lower it. I'm not going to take it away or change my expectations just because your opinion is that this is ridiculous. So yeah, just be strong, work out your values, and put your values out there. Live by your values so people can see who you are, what you are, and that the right people can be what you need and you can be what they need. And that between you just have this harmony of this shared values, shared boundaries, where, I mean, occasionally, obviously, you're going to breach them. We're not perfect. But as long as you've got a minimum of like this 80-20, peace and harmony, occasional upset, because that happens. We're all human. But if you can get to like 95-5, amazing. But it all comes from you being strong, you recognizing that what you want and need for yourself is important, and don't let anyone take that away or tell you otherwise. And this is a real struggle for people who have been abused to get to. Thank you. I know you love that. Thank you. Yeah. So real struggle for them to get to, which is why I love the work that I do, because this is where I get them to, where they're full of self-confidence, their own sense of worth and value, and we can start to put these really strong, they can establish their values, put their boundaries out there, and then they lose this fear of abandonment and lose this characteristic and trait of constantly giving, being the pleaser, because they understand they don't need to do that. As they are is perfect, and they can expect to give and to take, and that is what a healthy relationship looks like. So I now have to go on to this incredibly important RTT session, which I'm really looking forward to. If you missed the beginning, I'm going to see a lady now who literally, she's shaking. She's had trauma for 18 months of therapy, and she's shaking to the point where she can't hold a pen. She can't get her work done. So I am going to go and do an RTT session for her, and I'm going to calm and reset and rebalance her system. And I can guarantee that in a couple of hours' time, she will not be shaking anymore. So I'm really looking forward to doing this. I'm looking forward to doing it for her. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to share some of that with you, how that works, what I do and how I do it. Because I think a lot of people don't believe it can be done, but it definitely can. And I'm looking forward to doing it for her.